In our conversations last week, as private citizens, both Damon and I advised some of these Europeans, don't challenge the United States during a presidential transition. Don't challenge our outgoing president or our incoming president. I mean, do the right thing and continue the sanctions. On the last question, as a civilian, I certainly don't want to see us cut the defense budget. I think the pivot, the rebalancing to Asia is the right idea. And President Obama is right to build up American resources in Guam and Anderson Air Force Base, Darwin, Australia, in Japan and South Korea. It was impressive to see 2 U.S. carriers and their associated ships go through in international waters the South China Sea last week. That makes a big statement, but you've got to have a healthy defense budget to do that. We're big enough, we're wealthy enough, and we're a global leader, so in rebalancing to Asia, there's no contradiction in pivoting back to Europe. We hollowed out, in a way, our military in Europe to fight the Afghan and Iraq wars. And I very strongly support what Ash Carter has done to convince Congress that he can use $3.4 billion of defense funds to rebuild the American military in Poland, the Baltic states, and on our bases in Europe. We need to do more of that if we're going to have effective strategic deterrence against Putin.
And put it into the regular budget.
And put it in not just a one-off deal, but put it into the regular budget so that we have enough money to finance a bigger American military presence in Europe, which is very welcomed by the Europeans, by the way, as you know.
General.
One of my favorite sayings is virtual presence is actual absence. And by that I mean that if you want to be a superpower, you're going to have to be a superpower. And you can't just pick and choose where you want to be a superpower. So all this discussion about pivoting and rebalancing and all this other stuff is just kind of restating the obvious, in my view. I think most Americans really want this country to have the same type of primacy in terms of what goes on the globe in 2050 as we did in 1950. And if that's the case, then withdrawing from the world or withdrawing from regions will create vacuums. And vacuums are filled by people that don't have your best interests at heart. You've seen that recently in the Middle East with Russia, and we've seen it in different other places as well. So, the next administration is going to have to get on board fully with the fact of where is it you want to take this country, and where do you want this country to be. And places like the Black Sea are important, and they're important not only militarily and strategically, they're important economically. And one of the things that I've noticed is that there's a different dialogue when you talk to Eastern Europeans these days and Western Europeans. Western Europeans seem to be much more willing to forgive and find a reason to say, well, they didn't say it, or they didn't mean it, or maybe we shouldn't do the sanctions. But if you go to Eastern Europe, you won't get that. You don't get that at all. And having just come back from Romania, I was very pleased to discover on my arrival there that 700 U.S. Marines were training on Romanian bases that we actually got them to modernize back in 2006 when we were in NATO together, and same in Bulgaria. So if you go to those countries and you talk about how serious they think the threat is, you get the same kind of rhetoric that the Germans and the British and the French were talking about in 1950 when there was a Cold War. So the United States, I think, finds itself as a global power, not focused only on an East-West strategy, which has dominated our thinking for the last 70 years or so, but also having to think about new realities in our own hemisphere, but also the rise of the African continent as a reality that is going to be upon us before you think. And so we have to be engaged as a global power, and we cannot withdraw. It's in our own national interest. It's not because we're magnanimous and we want to do good things all over the world, but it's in our own national interest to be able to do that. It's our inheritance, really, from the 20th century. But it's a different world, and we have to organize ourselves differently. We have to be more agile. I've talked about the National Security Council, and not too facetiously, in the sense that we need a 24-hour National Security Council, because you can't afford to go to sleep in this world, because the next day you go to work and you're dealing with everything that happened during the 6 or 7 hours you caught up on your sleep. So this is a different world. It's a different century. The institutions that were organized for the Cold War are having a difficult time reacting with the speed and in meeting the variety of the challenges. Their economic, their energy, its climate, and its conventional military, and its non-nation state actors, and the whole bit. So I think we really have to figure out how we're going to do all the things that we want to do. And that's going to take some reorganization, I think, in our government and the way we do things. I found it much easier to deal with regions than dealing with single countries. So you can understand the world a lot better if you think regionally. We tend to have a mindset of dealing with countries from Washington individually through soda straws. But I believe with the unified commands that we have, which is another inheritance from the 20th century, that we could have regional strategies with regional representation by a whole of government and the military, fully based in different regions, and I think you could engage much more successfully there. The Black Sea is a good area for that, and it's a very serious issue, and I hope this summit deals with it.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, you've ranged very proactively, well beyond even NATO and the NATO periphery, to Asia and to regional combatant commands, etc. I think this has been a very engaging discussion. The report is proactive. We're trying to keep it spicy. Let's go on the road and do more of this. I hope you gentlemen maybe think about doing more TV and op-eds. And I just really want to say also thank you, both of you, for your leadership and for your long years of work in the field, obviously your service, and hopefully we can keep you talking about all these issues. So please join me in a round of applause.